Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Broker Bulletin. I just want to do a little recap of our meeting today. We discussed closing day and how to make it a little bit easier. Because next to the building inspection, that seems to be the biggest hurdle and the biggest cause of anxiety we have is the actual day of closing. While it should be a happy day, a lot of times it ends up being pretty stressful for everyone involved. So hopefully we got a few points to pass along that might make it a little bit easier. One of the things we picked up is sign early in the day. A 9, 10, 11 o'clock closing is a lot easier than a 3 or 4 o'clock closing because if nothing else, it gives us a lot of opportunity to fix any issues or any problems that come up. Midweek closings are usually the best. Even Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's a lot easier than even Thursday or especially Friday. Fridays are horrible. And if you need to direct your buyers and sellers to the midweek, you can explain to them something like, hey, on Friday, everything is backed up. It's harder to get the U-Haul van. It's harder to get movers. It's harder for the utility companies to get out. It's a lot easier midweek, and hopefully that might help to get them pushed along to agree to a midweek closing. But primarily it's for you in case there's an issue or problem and we have to push this back a day. It's a heck of a lot easier on everyone to push it from a Tuesday to a Wednesday than it is from a Friday to a Monday. It seems to mess up everyone's schedule. So again, remember, midweek closings are usually a lot better. Been noticing delays with the wires, and I think one of the things we can do to help with this, if you can, is have both parties close at the same title company. I know it doesn't always work that way, and we have our favorite closers, and everyone wants to close with the people they love, and it's so much easier and so much nicer, and you get to see them again. But sometimes closing at the same title company, I think, would really speed the process along, because then one title company doesn't have to send the funds to the other title company that it then has to process them again and send them out to a seller. I think it speeds that whole process up, and always keep that in mind that if possible, I think I would start leaning towards closing at the same title company, especially if you have a domino type closing. If you have 3 or 4 parties involved and one's closing and then the house they're selling, they're buying another one and they're buying another one, man, if you can keep all those at the same title company, you're gonna take a lot of stress off yourself. Maybe even have the sellers pre-sign. This was actually brought up in a lunch and learn just a couple weeks ago. We did with I think it was Investors Title. And that's what they said, that if at all possible, maybe have your sellers come in the evening before the closing, have them sign any papers. If you are going to do that, though, you definitely want to get in touch with your title company to make sure they have all the paperwork there so that they don't sign everything all that evening before, and then in the middle of the next day they have to come back in and sign another paper because there was another affidavit that the buyer's lender wanted them to sign off on or something like that. So definitely keep in contact with your title company, but you might even want to have them pre-sign in advance. That seems to help speed that process along. Explain wiring. No one brings a check anymore. All funds have to be wired. So the buyer's lender is going to have to wire funds in, and then those funds will normally have to be wired to the seller's title company, and then those funds are usually either printed out in a check to the seller or actually wired to their account. So as you can see, that slows that whole process down because you have people who send in a wire, and wiring is not like an ACH payment that you make when you pay your bills where you just click send and bloop, it's done. It has to go through the Federal Reserve System, and it's actually a long drawn out process, and that's what really seems to slow things down. So kind of explain to people what the wire is. And on that note, that kind of feeds into the whole pre-framing of your buyers and sellers as to what the closing process is going to look like. I can't stress enough how important this is. I would sit down with your buyers or your sellers, whichever party you have, and explain to them, okay, this is what closing day is going to look like, because they don't know, and they're going to come in with a preconceived notion of what's going to happen, and it's going to do nothing but cause a lot of stress. So for instance, the buyers will come in, say 9 o'clock, they sign their papers, they give their cashier's check, they walk out of there, jump in their U-Haul truck, and they're heading over to their house. Well, they don't own that house yet, because as we know, closing doesn't happen until the papers are signed and the funds are transferred. So they're going to have to wait until the funds are actually transferred. And now you can explain to them this is how that's going to work, is your lender is going to have to approve all these documents. Then they're going to have to authorize the release of the funds. Then their title company is going to have to send the funds over to the seller's title company, and then they're going to have to in turn send those funds off to the seller after they close. So as you can see how this whole process kind of starts to unfold, and on a Friday, as we just talked about, when everyone wants to close, it's the busiest day, everyone's always tied up. So the closers can't always get immediately to the wires and the transfer. So it becomes a slow process. So you want your buyers to know that, hey, this is going to take a while for this whole process to play out, and also for your sellers to know, if you come in here at noon and sign your papers, you're not going to walk out of here with a check. You explain to them how this happens. If not, they might be expecting this, and they might be taking a little bit aback when they sit down and they want to know where their $100,000 is. You tell them, well, we're going to get that to you tomorrow. And it might be a little uneasy, a little contentious there at that point. So explain how the whole process is going to play out with them. If you have any questions or anything, just drop me a line, give me a call. We're here for you, and we'll help you get through this whole process. Thanks.